Jay, I don't know why I'm yelling, but I'm yelling. Let's do this thing. Let's help some people break into tech sales or people who are in the tech sales game land better roles. And we're going to save them years that we're going to shave off their career trajectory and probably hundreds of thousands of dollars because you're getting crazy results for your coaching clients that you're helping break into tech sales and land these like crazy high paying AE roles. So the first question is an important one. How do we avoid mistakes that are made breaking into tech sales that are common from the folks that you've worked with so that people can break into tech sales faster than the competition?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And when I think about that, a lot of it comes down to what sort of information filter you have. And I think something that is just overemphasized is like get into tech sales, get into tech sales. Like I just don't believe getting into tech sales is going to solve your problems. I do think, however, if you get in with an industry leader, proven product market fit, great quota attainment, like you can actually build freedom in your life. And so I think that piece right there of people optimizing for speed over quality to get in the door is one of the biggest downfalls because like you've probably experienced this or worked with people in this situation, but they're so fixated on getting a role that they don't understand how to land the role. And so let's play it out. They get the offer, they get onboarded, they learn the tools, they start building up political capital with their managers, and then they hate it or it's an awful product. And so they have to go back on the market and now explain to another hiring manager or recruiter that they're not actually a job hopper. It was just a mistake. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is speed over quality. And when you optimize for the right company, a lot of other things can work itself out. But I just think everyone who's online saying, hey, get into tech sales, get into tech sales. It's like, I'm actually preaching the opposite. I'm like, don't get into tech sales unless you get in with an industry leader. And that is the biggest mistake I see.
Yeah. Imagine the costs. Like it's hard to even calculate when you get into the wrong company that you didn't realize didn't have the cash runway to keep going as a startup. They fail. You're out on the street. Like you said, now you have to deal with the objection. You look like a job hopper. What happened? And it's just, it kind of burns you a little bit. And we were fortunate to start in big tech. You at Dell, you had a meteoric rise. Like how many roles did you have in how many years? You had a bunch of roles.
Yeah, it was about 4 and 2.5 years. So SDR, AE manager, and field seller, all by the time I was 25.
Right. And I was at Oracle. I went from SDR to AE. And in that first year, I was making 100, maybe 20K buying my whole team coffee. I didn't know what to do with myself at like 23. And I didn't go into leadership, but I did well as an AE. And then it got me to Google. And we went to launchpad companies that just set you up. So I was going to ask you about this later, but the big tech versus startup, I feel like we kind of already answered it, but is there anything more you'd expand on in terms of why you help your members break into big tech over startup?
Totally. And some probably still classify as a startup, but have like a really good product market fit. The few factors I always remind people of, especially like earlier on in their career, is if a company's like series A or B, like still figuring out product market fit and your account executives aren't closing top line revenue, well, there's never going to be any revenue justification to promote anyone up in the organization. And a lot of times, like those motions haven't even been set yet to promote people. So it's risky by definition. Another dynamic that is kind of interesting with startups is I think a lot of people probably over-index on like IPO, all this other stuff that they're really excited about. But like I spoke to someone who's gone through like 4 or 5 IPOs, and he actually did a podcast with a mutual friend of ours, Scott Leese. And he was like, why does no one talk about how many unsuccessful IPOs there are? And I think a lot of people like put this like equity into this fairy dust and none of it comes to fruition. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of risks that come with startups, and I don't think people evaluate them enough. And the other thing to think about if you're really early in your career, especially if you're an SDR, I think AE is different. If you're a startup, and let's just say you're in fintech, and I have the option to promote Chris Bussing or killer SDR who's never closed top line revenue, or go poach someone who's already sold to Deutsche Bank, US Bank, and all these other companies who can bring in revenue quicker, I'm probably just going to pay the premium to get the premium candidate over take a risk on an SDR if I'm a small startup. So those are some considerations I would think about when you're looking at the dynamic between a startup or a larger company that can pour more resources into your development.
I've heard it said that if you go into Oracle or Dell, we get paid, up to 6 figures to get an MBA equivalent. We develop the highest leverage skills in the world, like outbound, cold emails, like marketing. We build our network, our people capital, as you put it. I love that term, but it's so true. All opportunities are tied to people. Shout out to Tom Singer, my mentor. He gave me some flack because I spoke to SDRs at Zoom Info, and he listened to the recording to give me feedback. And I'll be honest, I had room for improvement, but it was a good talk. And he's like, "Hey, I noticed this genius line. I said all opportunities are tied to people, and I didn't give him credit. So Tom, I think you're over there giving you credit." But anyways, yeah, you get paid for the network, this skill development. What an amazing opportunity. And I wanted to emphasize a couple points you made. I have a lot of people who come to me for my coaching, which is now more focused on helping SDRs get promoted to account executive or AEs, master outbound, and get to their next AE role. But with the SDRs, I have a lot of SDRs who come to me at companies where none of their AEs are hitting quota. They weren't thinking through picking out the right companies and looking at that. Now, if they were to work with someone like you as a coach and mentor, you'd help them navigate that and pick the right companies so they don't find themselves in that situation. And then, of course, they want to look at moving to a better company. That's a whole different thing. But if you can avoid that in the first place, that's huge. Now, the other thing with the IPO I had to riff on and equity. My last company, I was all excited. I got 50,000 shares, right? Pre-IPO equity. I get a certain strike price that's low. And if we go public, the valuation is a multiple. I pay at the lower price point and it multiplies in value. Well, I just went into entrepreneurship to join you as well, my friend. And I had to make a decision. The equity wasn't worth anything, and it probably never will. So that's a reality too of the fairy dust you describe. Right? Now, what's a startup that's late stage that maybe the audience should consider, right? I'll throw out, you've helped people get into Ramp. There's other great startups that are on the path to IPO. My buddy Mikey's at Vast Data. I think they got a good shot. But are there any like big name, like late stage startups, Databricks? I'm kind of stealing your thunder.
Oh, no, you're good.
Consider like recommending the audience to look at.
I actually don't know how this company's classified, but have you heard of Scale AI?
Tell me about them.
I believe they're just doing like fascinating stuff. I need to jog my memory, but I think it's like some sort of like AI augmentation for like software development. Like,
dude, when I was in my last role working with VPs of Eng, you remember that big deal Kajabi I was chasing? They were trying to do what you described, augment their software developers with AI. That was their top priority. Yeah, so there's a need.
But it's something like that, and like I checked it out because we have a member working with us who's the funniest guy ever. He actually visited me when I was in Hawaii. He was on a family vacation. Yeah. And he was actually a professional poker player in college to pay for his whole college tuition.
Yeah. And I like that because one thing you say, a Jayism, because I quote you all the time, aside from when you say activity is oxygen, which I tell the audience, and I got that from Jay, you say, hey, I want to be playing at bigger poker tables. Totally. The audience, you guys want to play at the best poker tables, the best companies. So it's funny, the poker metaphor. Anyway.
Yeah, no, and he was literally playing with like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh,
like the big,
wow.
He's making a ton, and he's obsessed with tech sales now. And so he was cold calling some like companies to really create novelty and stand out and getting his foot in the door. And he's very rational and analytical too. Yeah. And I think he got the director of sales from like Scale AI on the phone. And the guy like hung up on him immediately, but he just kept calling him back. And finally, he got like a 2-minute conversation with him. And he's like, dude, we're not hiring SDRs, just like buzz off. And our member like rationally presented to him. He's like, yeah, I think that actually makes sense. I think a better way to look at it is you should actually carve out your operational budget to take less of a risk and just do an internship. And so no joke, they're spinning up an internship program, and he's going in. I think there's 3 guys going into the final round because they'll get full-time offers after. And he was like going through his like final talk tracks and like how to, position himself better to get the job. And he has a 66% chance of getting it. And I was just telling him like, dude, you're going to be fine. Like just use the talk track that past behavior predicts future results. And so if you are 22 years old and a 7-figure poker earner because you became obsessed with that and now your obsession became tech sales, imagine the possibility. And so he's going to have an amazing talk track going into this final round with, to your point, I believe it could be an earlier stage startup, but I mean, there's so many good companies out there. And for someone like that to get in the door, and we've seen this multiple times with elite tech sales members, it's like in today's market, like you are objection handling when you don't get the offer to get the offer. Like we had that happen with an AE. We've seen this happen multiple other times. And it's the market that we're in and it's the vertical we're in. It's like you could say you're a good seller, but if you're not following up with a good objection handling after a decline, are you actually? And so not that that's the case for all of them, but we've worked with so many people that we have seen it.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like this, that he advised the leader that you should take your operational budget and create an internship. That's how he's going to sell in the role.
Yeah.
And you just gave the audience too a glimpse into what it takes to create opportunities from nothing, like networking, cold calling, SDRing your way into the role. And you also already gave us a great glimpse in how to frame a great narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we call it appealing to logic, but using, saying, hey, I became obsessed over this problem and have proven results, 7-figure earnings in this specific space, and this is going to transfer when I become obsessed about tech sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're already cutting the things that we're going to talk about later in the conversation, like how do you earn referrals to top companies, how do you interview? So, dude, that and the objection handling is that really blows up limiting beliefs that people have. People give up too easily. So you're saying that not just him, but you've seen other examples of people who got denied and then they objection handled?
Yeah, so there was an AE we were working with who, like, we thought was like the biggest plug and play for this VP of sales, everything. And it was hilarious because the VP went back to the member we were working with and kind of gave this like weird response when they didn't get the offer. And like there was all the indicators leading to getting the offer, pretty much saying, hey, don't sign anywhere else. Like, we're going to take care of you.
Oh.
And essentially the VP came back and was like, hey, like we met with our team and like we just don't think you have that dog in you. And
that's funny because that's a common expression in sales.
And I was like, that is like the most alpha Chad comment by a director of sales or VP of sales. But I was like,
let's clearly have that dog in you.
Yeah, I was like, clearly like this is I don't want to say it was a test because when they were actually like sharing the emails, like it was a valid concern with the ICP of the AE they wanted to bring in. But this individual drafted up an amazing email with an amazing hook being like, you're right, I don't have that dog in me, but I have this. And it was like a really good pattern interrupt.
Wow.
And they actually had time to evaluate the copy that he wrote on that email response, and he ended up getting the offer.
Wow. And it's an amazing tie-in. I had my buddy George Blesson, who was an account executive on my first inside team at Oracle. And I had to interview in front of a committee it was an all guys team. I was in my suit. I crushed it. I found out I got the role, but he was the one person that said no because he didn't think I had that dog in me.
Oh.
And in the conversation, I said, I asked him about it. He said, yeah, that was it. And I said, George, look at me now. I'm barking loud. But the thing is, like, to the audience, if someone doesn't believe in you or doesn't think you have the dog in you, which actually it's funny enough, I got that early in my career as well, you can still prove them wrong. Still hang in there. Show them your skills. And I love the pattern interrupt that you said, yeah, you're right. Like, or that he said that. He went with it. That's a great objection handling principle, but then shifted their perspective to what he did have. And that's a testament to your coaching and how you take care of your members, man, to help them push limits and do the unthinkable, because most people out in the market would never even consider, pushing back like that. It's amazing. We're going to talk more about the results you've been getting, but as I go back to mistakes people make, before we get to now, should the audience start an SDR or AE, we got a ton of fun questions that are going to help the audience break into tech sales faster or pivot to a new role faster and help them make more money and be more successful. But another mistake that I feel costs people is that maybe they're super raw and they don't take the time to get any training on how they storytell and interview. And what are your thoughts on that? Because I've seen that where some people, like, I had one person, they were raw, like, entrepreneur with all the potential in the world, but they hadn't put in the time to really polish themselves and practice for interviews. And so they kind of, and they weren't meticulous.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work out for them in one of their first opportunities, which was a great one. Because you can get in the door, but if you're not ready, it's going to cost you. So, I mean, that's something I've seen, but have you seen things like that in your experience?
In terms of like people
Not
just
being ready. Like they're not putting in intentionality or preparing and including it could be investing in a program like yours. You know, some people are coming in pretty raw. They might have all the potential, but they don't realize how much precision is required in interviewing in a competitive market. You know, so I know that's what I've seen, but I'm curious if I think that's something that costs people. And by not putting in the work up front, at least put in some preparation, it slows them down and costs them missed opportunities. And I will say, when I got my job at Google, which was one of my crowning achievements because it's hard to get into, I spent a month preparing. I networked. I got questions in advance. I practiced. I did not just dive right into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, this is very relevant because, we have like a whole coaching team, VPs of sales who are like lights out. I still love doing the offboarding calls with people. And so like I always pick up on the trends and I always reverse engineer like our CRM of who's coming in and what. And there's an individual who's offboarding and I kind of asked him, I'm like, what was your favorite part? All that stuff. And he's like, honestly, man, like I had been unemployed for 6 months and my biggest mistake is just not starting earlier. And he said the problem that he had is there's this deficit in what good interviewing looks like. So he didn't know, but he thought he was doing all the right things. But it took him getting so many declines to finally realize that he needed help.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are going into the market thinking that we're in like the COVID era where like people are just hiring and you can get jobs. And it's just not the case. And so for this individual, it was really cool because he technically only had like SDR experience. But he came to us wanting to get an account executive. It's like, it's kind of relevant. It kind of overlaps. And I just told him, I'm like, you can always craft your narrative to sell yourself into roles out of your league. That's exactly what I did at Dell. And funny enough, within 8 days of starting, he landed an account executive role at Bill. And not only that, fully remote. And because he abided by all the frames of value of what a good narrative looks like and how to take his personal experience and parlay that, he got like essentially the director. We were going back and forth to get him like a higher OTE, all that. And finally, the director's like, hey, like, here's what we can do. I'll come back to you with our best offer. And like, we thought he was going to get a signing bonus of like, $2.5K, kind of like, the shake the hand, let's get it done. They came back with a $10K signing bonus, which was crazy. And so for him, it was really cool because he was saying, I just didn't know what good looked like. He's like, I went to college, I listened to everyone, and I thought I knew everything. And he's like, the resume you made for me was like 10 times better. The narratives you built for me is like out of this world. He's like, the salary negotiation itself, like more than paid for itself. And I think that is a big reason a lot of people are coming to us in a competitive market is like, you can get a job, but can you get the job? And then even besides that, like our salary negotiation pays for itself. And I think that's like the ultimate win-win is how can you get in a role, maximize your pay and like actually build like freedom in your career with getting in with a good product, a good quota attainment, and actually have a chance to hit your accelerators where you can thrive in your role.
Getting the role, not just a role, a quality role that sets you up for the next 3 to 5 years and catalyzes your whole long-term trajectory.
Right.
Starting off on the right foot is really important, brother.
And I really want to make this point, and this is what I tell everyone. So here's what happens like when you actually get a good role that you're passionate about. And like, I'm a good example because I've done it myself, is because I chose a really good product market fit, selling EMC infrastructure at Dell.
What a great place to be.
And just a great place to start. Advanced 4 roles in 2.5 years. By the time I was a field seller, I was working 10 hours a week. I do not say that to brag, but I say that is the knowledge you acquire with being in an ecosystem for a longer time horizon. Is you understand the sales motion, you understand the partners you work with, you understand quicker sales cycle. I understood how our internal organization works, so I could align 17 SDRs to my inside
Unreal.
rep. So then I was only working deals over 150K and more that I could sling over to partners of ours. So it's like, you shouldn't, like, if you actually want more freedom in your life or your career, you should optimize to find a good product where you can stay and build momentum. If you're optimizing for the next highest OTE every 12 to 18 months, like, you're learning new softwares, you're learning new product motions, you're doing all that. And that's been the big elite tech sales aha moment for a lot of people, is they're like, oh, I don't want to just hop to another company every year. Like, I want to find a good home with good pay where I can actually build momentum. And that's literally how I got to the point where I was like the highest pipeline contributor, always one of the top reps in the West Coast as a field rep, working like 10 hours a week. Like, it was absurd.
I remember when you were still at Dell before you took the leap to build elite tech sales, and I was in awe that you had optimized your schedule, built the systems, delegated work to partners and your SDRs in order to work 10 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
What a move. And for some of the audience out there, that might be worth much more than even a higher OTE role, right? You're going to make great money at a company like Dell, but to have that time freedom to then maybe for the entrepreneurs out there to build on the side too, and eventually exit the game with all the skill sets, the people capital we talk about, the self-development, we become a better version of ourselves, the financial capital, like that is a powerful picture you painted, brother. And you help people go down that path.
Yeah. And like, we've had people, like, funny enough, I'm going to start talking about this more, but about 80% of all the people we work with at Elite Tech Sales, like, they're kind of like these entrepreneurs at heart. Like, they have side projects, they have things they want to do, or like they're really committed to just building a family. And we have people we've worked with who they work at companies, and they have, marketing agencies on the side. They sell like dried mangoes making 5 to 10K a month.
Yeah.
Like, there's like all this creative freedom that goes when you get that first poker chip right. And I think a lot of people can relate to my journey of doing that. Cause I mean, I had, a good amount of time to build elite tech sales while I was at Dell because I had the freedom. And I think I told you this, maybe not, but at one point when I was at Dell, I faced the exact problem you mentioned, where I was interviewing for a Salesforce manager role that paid 350K OTE. And I'm like, this is bananas. Like, I was still 25 at the time. And I just remember saying that the money's not worth it. Like, the time is worth it to have freedom in my schedule. So you really hit on a good point. It's like, currency isn't always going to solve problems. Like, a lot of people are humans and want to optimize for time freedom and getting good at their sales motion, and then having time to be committed to their family, committed to their side projects.
Yes. I think we ride this tech sales wave for as long as we need to then also support and set ourselves up to enter into our zone of genius. Maybe you building, elite tech sales and really impacting people using all of your skill sets, your expertise on interviewing to help people open doors and make a huge, huge difference. And who knows what else you will build as you continue to go. But I love that we can use tech sales, like, as we figure out what our true zone of genius is, especially for the young people out there. They of course, they're not going to know their life and career purpose right away. Totally. But this path is one we can go down. And as we figure that out, we are building fruits that and actually reaping a harvest. Look at me with all my metaphors. That is going to be exponentially valuable long term. And by the way, I've had some people that you've passed me for my coaching programs, for account executive coaching and things like that. And they were just so excited about their experience with you. And they're like, Jay opened my eyes to coaching. Like, I thought, like, this person was a high caliber account executive. And he said, I thought I knew it all, to your point earlier. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And Jay showed me like Jedi like tricks that for interviewing and things that just helped him get much better results than he ever would have gotten on his own. So the thing is, we all have blind spots, things we don't know. And we can wander around and stumble and take longer to achieve our goals than we'd like to, or we can get mentors or coaches to model after to avoid the pitfalls. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do today in this conversation and what you do through your program. Is there anything you want to riff on off of that? Otherwise, I'll take us through some more questions that I know is going to be useful to the audience.
Yeah, I think the quick thing, and this is very important for anyone out there, it is a concept that if you take one thing away from this episode, it's having an information filter. So that's actually what has separated elite tech sales from everything is like, I've actually done the stuff that I'm preaching. Like, I'm not some guy who, just randomly got into tech sales, midlife crisis and try to figure it out, then like started a coaching thing on the side.
You're not some guy that just did 1 year.
Or like an AE that hopped, or like an SDR to no-name company that's just posting on LinkedIn. It's like, I've done it. I've literally now have VPs all on my team who have interviewed over 1,000 people. And so when I think of how an information filter plays a role in my life is I've dealt with major struggles, like taking elite tech sales, like past a 6-figure company and everything like that. And there's an ignorance deficit I always have to pay off. And so I'm like, okay, who could be a good mentor for me who's gone through everything, and I could just send a text and I know they've trialed and errored everything. So when they send me that one sentence, it is like proven through like 20 to 30 years of knowledge. And it's actually like Scott Leese.
Yeah. Our guy who actually,
Austin.
he sat in this chair and I was in your chair and we did our podcast.
Exited
and he's
14 companies. Yeah. I just did a podcast with him. And so whenever you're looking at an information filter, like you should just look to work with the best because they've gone through it. And it's not like that I've done it, I have VPs. It's like we have the results. So it's like that's why we keep everything transparent. Like people, they'll leave us reviews on LinkedIn, they'll leave videos on our website. People always reach out to them and like, hey, is this like snake oil? And I think everyone always has discernment, but I think that's like one thing is like have a good information filter. It's like, oh, this guy, he closed a $10 million deal at OfferUp. He probably knows something about outbounding if he did that off a cold call. Like that is legit.
Yeah. And what's pretty cool is this whole conversation is like, how would you break in faster if you could go back with a top company? And you did go through the fire breaking into tech sales at Dell. Like you had your meteoric rise, but didn't you, like, you swung and missed on a lot of interviews? I thought that was a part of your story, wasn't it? Because it wasn't just you got Dell on the first try. So I think through that trial and error, you learned what didn't work too. And so that also adds to your expertise and credibility to help people get in with the top companies. But is there anything you'd share around like some of the challenges of you first breaking in on your own journey?
I mean, there's just so many. I didn't know what I was doing. Like the only advice my parents gave me, and I just think it was a different generation. Like they weren't these like self-help parents, like swaddling me with all this info.
Yeah.
They legit just both worked at top medical companies. I think, Johnson & Johnson, Abbott Diagnostics. They actually both met at Abbott Diagnostics during their good to great period.
Yeah,
you ever read that book?
And to the audience, it's actually not a bad place to meet the love of your life. I've been to weddings, the folks who met at Oracle, and you in college, you did a little research on proximity and how it brings us together. And so there's something about being in the same work environment. I'd be open to it. It hasn't worked out for me yet, though. But anyways, a little plug.
Yeah, so their only advice to me from their experience was just get with a big company because they'll have the most resources to develop you and make you get a rep. And so that just kind of set me on a path to only go after big name companies, which came with a ton of rejection.
Yeah.
And I think with anything you want in life, you could take the good advice of work hard. I like the frame of work hard, iterate quickly. And so it's like, as you fail, take it as an iteration process of like, oh, like what was the one thing that they didn't like? And I think this is where a lot of people get stuck is they don't have a good feedback loop during an interview process. I do think I'm naturally pretty intuitive, so I could figure it out myself, like what the gaps were. But even talking to some of our members, like, right as they join, they're like, yeah, I've been trying like ChatGPT to give me feedback, all this stuff. And the thing with AI, like at least today, is it doesn't have a taste for like style and marketing and like all these other things to like really be crisp. And so I think it can leave people kind of alone in an echo chamber of like thinking they're good, but not getting the result. And they're like, well, what am I doing wrong? Um, and I'm just here to say, like, you're not alone. Like, there are so many people who put time on our calendars and they're just like, what exactly is the issue? I do think humans are experiential learners, so I think a good majority of people they need to fail like 5 interviews of companies they really really like before they have that aha moment of
Yes.
A, like I should get help, and then B, like it's okay to ask for help. I think some people like have an ego around like getting coaching, but it's like the smartest people in the world
Yeah.
get coaches to acquire skill sets to just boost their income. And back to like our earlier point, like at Elite Tech Sales, we're just obsessed with helping people maximize their income because we don't know how long they're going to be in tech sales, but like we want to give them the runway to make impactful money so they can create more freedom in their lives. And so if they're in it like I am for 4 years, but they're rocking with like an awesome company, or they're with the Google or Oracle like you were, that's like our whole intention. Like if you choose not to be a CRO or a VP of sales and drink the Kool-Aid, we're like, cool. If you want to be that, it's like, cool, like let's support you. But wherever you are, and like maybe tech sales is just like a stepping stone out of college, like figure out what you want. Like we just want to maximize your income, and that is all we care about.
And that's a tool to create freedom, and a lot of unpredictable good things come from that. And, speaking of investing in coaches, in your point that the best do it, another guy, Jason Bay, who we know in the industry, Outbound Squad, he is a beast. He was telling me that he invests in a coach. This guy, Anthony Iannarino, is one of his mentors too. But to think that there's CEOs that are absolutely destroying it, and they're investing in coaches to help uncover their blind spots, it says a lot. And in fact, that mentality is what got them to that level. So let me take us on an adventure through a list of questions that's going to continue to bring so much value to the audience. Are you guys ready? Let's go. If someone's breaking into tech sales for the first time, should they be starting in the SDR role, the account executive role? Hey, there's got to be some nuance to this. So tell us what you think.
Yeah, this has actually been a hot topic for us lately, because we even have like SDRs from Google coming into our program, like trying to figure out how they can get AE roles. So short answer, like every good answer, is it depends. And nuance. So if you don't have like any professional experience, you're probably going to be relegated to an SDR role. I think that's really fair. However, had an individual who wanted to get into tech, was an account executive for 6 years as a loan officer, and they wanted to get into tech but not be an SDR. And so I just told them straight up, I said, this is possible. Like my whole career is selling myself into roles out of my league. So if you really want to get after it and build like airtight narratives, we can make it happen. The way I would look at it though, if anyone is in that position where they're coming in with a lot of experience and they want to skip the SDR role, is understand who values your experience. So like for this individual, because he was a loan, like in the loan processing, I don't know all the nuances with it. I said, hey, like your best bet is going to be staying with a similar persona and a similar vertical. Because like if you take what you do and you try to be an AE in like cloud computing, like there's not like a huge alignment. And so what we ended up doing is we got him into a lot of fintech companies. And the one that he got into was Square. And so he actually, he executed everything flawlessly, very coachable, very open to feedback, literally saved him over 2 years being an SDR. And so he went from like 110K to 195K. And because he understood frames of value and how to really communicate his narratives effectively, and like we role play everything, it's very custom. When he was the top candidate when he got his offer letter, all right, sweet, we have the leverage now. And so we sent one email and made him 18 more K. So he went up to 213K. And so one individual, it has now 103K more of run rate every year just after leaving our program, which is bananas. And so that is one example. Another thing to think about if you are an SDR and you actually want to be an account executive is go back to the frame, who values my experience? And so whenever someone is looking to go SDR to AE externally, it's always a little more difficult in a competitive market. And so I always tell people, okay, who values your experience? Do you have competitors who would hire someone who's an SDR, but now they'll take you as an AE because they know that you know the language and they'll take the risk on you, not like going to a completely different vertical? Or do you have partners that you've worked with? And maybe the partner will hire you on as an account executive because they value your subject matter expertise in that niche database industry
So
or
it's like,
something.
say you're at Google Cloud SDR, and then there's a Google Cloud partner that's trying to grow their business with Google Cloud. You're very valuable to them, and you're saying an SDR at Google Cloud could make that leap to account executive to partner.
You can, yeah.
That's one example, right? Because you have a synergy.
Right.
You're coming from the place that they're trying to build more business with.
And they'll value that. Also, like a really good exercise is just understand all the perceived reasons you won't get hired and then figure out better narratives to overcome it. So, example, that same individual who got an offer at Square, the number one piece of feedback he kept getting from VPs throughout all the rounds that we would overcome proactively. Again, there's a concept of obstacles versus objections. Obstacles are perceived weaknesses that they're going to think about you going into an interview. If you have a high emotional intelligence or people around you to like tell you your shortcomings, the goal is to proactively build a narrative around it to overcome it so it's not an objection at the end of the interview. So for him, we knew going in that everyone would say, well, you haven't worked in the tech space. We can't take the risk. Like, you're too risky. And what I was telling him is like, you just have to clarify. It's like, well, what do you mean by that? And because a lot of tech people are just kind of in their head. They're like, we sell complex products.
And honestly,
they're not.
You don't have to be technical. You need to know the problems you solve and how it impacts customers and who cares, right? And be able to tell good stories. I never was technical, and yet I sold some of the most technical solutions.
Yeah, but that's like,
and so it is BS, but like, yeah.
But you have to overcome it.
Yeah.
So like for him, we would tell him like, center what the actual like hesitation is. And he'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Well, like, I sell to CFOs. Like, I do this, I do that. Like, I don't think there's actually a gap. And because I know everything about POS and I have all these experiences, like I understand the technology and this, and this. So I understand why you're thinking that, but there's actually like no gap at all. And so when you just learn how to communicate better, you just win better offers. And this individual not only just made a ton of money, but like literally saved 2 years being an SDR, which anyone who's been an SDR would gladly save 2 years with just better communication.
A lot of people out there want to skip the SDR role. So, okay, one thing I didn't expect to ask you this, but there's some people who have an employment gap, and I came across one person that they chose to be there for their family. It was like a very noble reason, and they still invested in themselves while while caring for their family. They volunteered in marketing capacity at a certain company, and they learned about AI and got some certifications. My thought would be to actually own that story and say, I made a decision in alignment with my values to be there for my family. There's nothing more important than that. And during that time, I actually increased my knowledge and skill set by investing in this and getting this experience that's going to make me more valuable now for this position. That's an example of how I'd think about it, but you are a master of narrative. So is there anything else you'd add around the framing for someone who did have a gap like that, but for some pretty good reasons? Tech sales is an amazing career path where you can make as much as doctors and lawyers without having to cut anyone open or work ungodly hours. Looking back 10 years later, having personally started out in tech sales at Oracle, then moved to Google Cloud and a startup, and now fully launching into entrepreneurship, I can say with confidence that tech sales transformed my life through the income that it produced, the skill development, the connections, and the self-development that I unlocked along the journey. If you're someone who wants to strategically build your own six-figure tech sales career without wasting valuable time and earnings potential, then consider Tech Sales Accelerator and our 12-week programs as your blueprint. Our partners are breaking in and crushing quota at top companies like Oracle, Google Cloud, VMware, and Salesforce, leveraging our in-depth video content, one-on-one coaching, community, and network access. And we'd love to partner with you too to accelerate your own success on this path. If you'd like to learn more about Tech Sales Accelerator and our programs, then feel welcome to book time at my Calendly link, linked in the description of this video, and we'll walk you through all the details. Or just download my free cold calling system that's going to help you crush the phones quickly, also linked in the description of this video. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, you definitely have to look at the whole resume. So sometimes when people are booking calls with our team and everything, like people will say words, but you can typically get a better understanding by like looking at their LinkedIn or resume. So if that example happens, but I'm looking at the individual's resume and like their last four jobs were all like 9 month stints, like they don't really have a good track record of credibility to like pull off a good narrative.
Yeah.
And they might need to humble themselves and like
Yeah.
actually just like step back and like build momentum and prove themselves out somewhere.
Oh, I
I do
see. I
think
see.
if it's a complete anomaly where
They
you
actually have good. This person I talked to actually did have a good track record,
yeah.
and they were in program management. So they were at a fintech. They actually do have like pretty good experience, and had staying power with some of their companies. So in that
So
case,
they'd be
you
fine.
can work with it.
Yeah, totally. Because things happen. Like people don't expect you to have a perfect career. Like I talked to some rock stars who just like totally mess up and get sold a lie, go into a startup, and then they're like, I need to get out of here. And so it's like if you have a good track record, like there's going to be more validity to the actual story you tell, and you can create a very compelling narrative around it. Because if all the data shows that you're a great rep, you have great tenures at companies, and you performed, and all of a sudden, like this family thing came up, and like at the end of the day, this is something that you were able to go take care of, and it's hopefully not much of an issue anymore. The only consideration that you need to make sure your narrative accounts for going forward is that it's not a lingering problem. And I say that lightly. I don't know all the context, but at the end of the day, companies are optimizing for retention. And so if they feel like the problem is still going on and you might, be subject to take this role, but then have to, scoot out in 6 months because like this thing is still going on, then you're probably not going to be a good candidate in a competitive market where you have 9 other people lined up who like don't have that going on. So it definitely depends, but you always need to position yourself as an asset over a liability. And to like overall, like macro here, I think that's what we've been really good at is being able to translate people's unique value and narratives to like really account for the roles they're going to and really develop compelling talk tracks that like they couldn't even formulate the words for.
So we're going to get to that, and I'm going to try and get there as quickly as possible. But this is $1 million question. Speaking of as quickly as possible, if you had to pinpoint a few of the key factors that are most critical if someone does want to land a great role at a great company as quickly as possible, what are the couple factors in the journey that you would have someone really focus on?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it. The number one thing is storytelling, and the number one story that you should know better than anything is tell me about yourself. And this is something not a lot of people think of. I recommend this book to everyone in our program when they get their role, and the feedback is crazy. But there's a really good book called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. And he is one of the, I think I mean, who knows, like, who actually tracks
I've heard of him.
but essentially closed like the most private equity deals, just like baller.
Dude, he's a good future guest to go after. You know how I prospect for the big names. I haven't been doing.
I can get you an intro.
Really?
Yeah, a guy I went to that seminar ALA with.
No way.
So
thank you, dude. You're a big hitter. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
all right, guys. Yeah.
I don't know him personally,
but that's still cool.
But essentially the whole concept and why I say this is storytelling is massive because Chris and I are talking here thinking we're very intelligent, like tech, all this. And the way that we're communicating is through our neocortex, which is something that's developed, I'm going to get this wrong, over the last 1,000 years, let's say.
Caveman days.
Yeah. The reality is how we've evolved is through our lizard brain. So fight or flight, everything. And so when you have two candidates going to like introduce themselves, and we've seen this all the time, is when you have a candidate who's like really boring and dull and they don't have a story. Hey, I'm Chris. I closed $10 million deal, sold to this persona, and I'm really happy to be here.
And it's just data and facts, and it's no emotion to it.
Yeah, it's just neocortex. That's the neocortex, and the neocortex does not process things. Like the lizard brain is how people actually make decisions. Yes. And so a really fun example of this is we took, you actually met this individual here in Austin.
Yeah.
He was in LA at the time.
Yeah.
And I just took a risk on this guy. I was like, no college degree, no like tech experience. I'm like, I'm going to see how good of an offer I can get this guy. And fast forward, he got offers with Rubrik and Snowflake.
Yeah.
And
two of the best companies in the cybersecurity place and data space. Those are the two best
the
waves
top.
to the audience in terms of tech sales, like waves to ride. So not just like you might consider the company you're at the boat. Like waves or like data and cybersecurity, they're two of the best. Anyways, it's funny. I was trying to say a metaphor, and I feel like my brain, it's a Friday and it's late, so it didn't really come to me. But we get the point.
Yeah. So when we were working with him, we noticed an amazing pattern in all of his interviews because he's also interviewing with like Mongo, all these other companies. Like it was really cool to work with him. And we realized that if you answered the tell me about yourself in more of like a lizard brain storytelling form, that was like one of the number one contributors, besides like building rapport and other thing we teach, to getting the emotional buy-in on you. And so we actually process everything through a hero's journey. And if you actually can speak that language to another human, then they can get an emotional buy-in on you. And even if you answered the rest of the questions like subpar, because you've built such an emotional buy-in, then they care about you and they're rooting for you. So like his name is Zach. He wouldn't care if I told this story. He's a cool guy.
Shout out to Zach. It's a good
but
guy. Very hungry.
Here's an example the audience can take away. It's like very tangible. And the whole framework is this, and I'll give it. It's have a hook at the beginning. So like hook your audience. So you are a busy manager. I need a hook to get your attention on myself. To like get a pattern interrupt. I need an aha moment, then I need a hero's journey. And so for him, his hook would be like, hey, my name is Zach. I am a Russian immigrant and I grew up hating communicating with people. And so it's like when you kind of say that to a sales manager, they're like, well, why are you here? And that's
a pattern interrupt.
Yeah. So you hook your audience, and then his aha moment was, it wasn't until I was 7 years old, I picked up my first Tony Robbins book and became obsessed with communication. And so it's like, it's essentially a contrast you build.
Yeah.
And having a contrast is big, but after that hook aha moment, then it's your hero's journey, and this needs to be chronological. And he was like, yeah. So I got into the workforce, had no clue what I was going to do, and decided I was going to get a sales job and just test out if I could actually communicate what these books were saying. And 3 months later, I found myself as the top performer at this company. And so there's a lot of contrast. And another word for contrast to think about is the best storytelling has tension. And if you want an example of tension, think of the movie Jaws. So Jaws is a very simple movie, shark attack, whatever. If there was a tracker on Jaws the whole movie, there would have been no tension and the movie would have sucked.
Yeah.
But it's like they literally did not have a tracker, and that was the whole movie, and there's tension, and it's like an award-winning movie.
Yeah.
So it's like
tension made all the difference.
It's just having tension. So that like that contrast builds tension, and then right there. So if I was to break down like one thing to just obsess about, it's like get out of your neocortex, get good at storytelling. And that response is a question that you're going to get asked casually networking, casually in your first round, or to start every round, whether it's the recruiter, hiring manager, director, everything. And if you do not crush that, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, because you're actually getting an emotional buy-in from a human in the most primal way possible, how we evolved. And that, like, out of the million things, that it probably packs the maximal effective dose over anything.
Yes. And that's how you win the interview, like early on.
Mm-hmm.
You set a tone where they become your champion. They want you to win. And it has a halo effect over your other answers too.
Right.
And of course, when they work with you, they're going to know the answers to the test. They're going to know the questions coming, and you're going to help them frame narratives for all those other questions.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you focused on interviewing and particularly, narratives, right? I will clarify. It's very useful in interviews. You'll get that type of question in every round from recruiter screening to the final round, but it's also useful for networking, right? And it's going to get the people you're networking with bought in to want to refer you and think you're a high caliber candidate. So I love it. Let's talk about resume and even LinkedIn. I'll almost pair them together, but we'll knock one domino down before the next. Then we're going to make our way to networking, and we'll hit that. But I do, like, you were such an expert with interviewing, so I want to spend a little time there. So let's just some resume tips that are needle movers for the audience.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably link it at the bottom of this, but like I
We
designed
will.
a
Yeah.
resume template on Canva. We're adding the cover letter part to it now. Totally optional, but resume, we even have like examples of metrics and everything. So like literally just plug and play and steal it. And I think as a bonus, there's like a mini like 4K course on how to optimize your resume, LinkedIn, and everything. So just literally like
Yeah,
steal it. It
guys,
works.
I've linked the resume template that Jay made in the description of the video. Definitely check it out. It's just such a good quick win on your journey. It's a no-brainer.
So here's how I think about it. I'm very selfish in terms of how I spend my time. So when I think about my let's just call it energy unit per hour and like what's going to produce the maximal effective dose, I think it's a complete waste of time to cold apply. So like everyone who's like, oh, let's like optimize for the ATS and all that, I'm like, no.
Dude, I have so many people reach out to me and say like, I'm not getting interviews. I'm like, are you networking? Or like, and they're like, no, I'm just cold applying. I'm like, come on.
That's it.
And that's such a simple fix.
And but people have limiting beliefs. Like they're just like, well, I can't reach out to a stranger. So like,
Yeah. You know what? I've come across people that they feel, of course, they feel like they're bothering the person. And that's it. You're right. We got to blow up that belief. Let's do it right now. Let's just blow up that belief. On like,
yeah,
people are like, oh, I feel bad. I'm like interrupting someone or like I'm bothering them. What would you say to that?
you're not. Like most of these people get referral bonuses. Like even all the members we work with, like there's one guy who reached out to me who he helped get a job at CrowdStrike. He's like, yeah, I make 1,500 every time I refer and get someone a job. So he's like, I'm super cool referring people.
You're doing them a favor.
Yeah,
That's the paradigm shift.
but if you show a professional, so here's like the caveat. So going back to like energy per unit, like let's break down 2 hour long sessions. 1 hour, I am cold applying on my laptop. And honestly, applications kind of suck nowadays. Like fill in all these questions, like they take a good amount of time to get high volume. Obviously, LinkedIn apply, like that's just you're filling a company's ATS. You're probably not going to hear back. You could be the exception though, but on average, let's say you spend an hour, you get X amount of applications, you get a 3% hit rate with anything you hear back on. And maybe that's out of 100. Well, the inverse would be, what if I took that same hour and I just reached out to strangers, networked with people with a really good looking resume that doesn't even have to be ATS friendly, but shows a little character, well formatted, builds credibility instantaneously, maybe after you connect and like you ask for the referral. Well, what we're seeing is, and we have like templates and everything to like get referrals if you want to do that. Also, like we'll give people intros to our network.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, by the way, in working with your program, that the network's there for them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, but you'll teach them how to fish and how to open doors themselves, but you've kind of got their back because you've been helping so many people get into Google, Databricks, all these top companies. It's like, and dude, they're so happy with your results that they're like, yeah, let's pull up more people with us.
Totally.
So, I mean, that's a nice little benefit.
So group A, you have a 3% success rate. And that's cold apply. Group B, it's like, we see when people get a referral, there's like a 95 to probably 97% chance you're going to get a recruiter screening. So it's like, why would you not just optimize like for the maximal effective dose and make it happen?
Yes.
And so when it comes to a resume, like take our template, it's beautifully crafted. You can add in your hobbies and everything, ways to make you stand out. And I've like personally received this compliment, like even when I was internally networking in Dell to get roles, is I've had people decline me for screenings and put me directly into the first round because they could tell that because I front loaded my time to build a professional resume, something that looked good, they just had this credibility or belief built up in me before my mouth even opened. And so I thought that was like a big moment because what a lot of people don't want to think about is the way you present yourself is the way a company will picture you presenting their product. And so if you go work at a company and like you get off a phone with a prospect and you send them the ugliest white paper ever, that's very complex to read, it's not easy, it doesn't have anything broken down easy, it's not a win-win situation. And so when you have a beautifully crafted resume like we have, where we even have like a spot where you can literally put your awards, like people don't have to scan through this dull black and white resume that's like 2 pages to figure out that one award that's actually really cool and should be front and center on your resume. The concept that you are executing in that moment is lowering the cost to transact with someone. So if you can come from the frame of how can I make myself the lowest cost to transact with, you'll always win. So even with, and you wanted to get into this, it's like getting into how do you get a referral with someone?
Yeah, let's hit on that.
So this is gold. So like just steal it. Is a lot of people want to help, but you need to make it easy for them to help. And so if I'm a sales leader and I'm getting hit up by all these people, because a lot of people are reaching out for referrals, well, you're marketing yourself and you're creating novelty, one, by like having a differentiated resume where all of a sudden you look great. You'd have to see as many resumes as I have for them to look bad, to see like what looks bad. But the where was I going with this?
So we're talking about getting referred in, and
Oh,
you have to
I
make
got
it.
it.
I love what you said. Cost of transacting. You need to reduce that cost. You need to make it easy for them to refer you.
So here's the line that wins a lot of people. So it's like people want to help you, but you need to make it easy for them. And so whenever someone agrees to meet with you, make it really easy. So offer 2 times, send the calendar invite, but empathy is the gateway to trust. And so a line that we'll use that's very relevant is we'll say, awesome, I know Zoom fatigue is real, so happy to hop on a phone if that's easier. Let me know what works best. And you wouldn't believe how many people are so happy by that, because if you're like VP, director of sales, or an account executive, an SDR, like the last thing you want to do is get on another Zoom meeting and have more Zoom fatigue. However, a lot of people would love to help you on their lunch break when they're walking their dog, like just kind of give you some free advice.
You know what? I've got a buddy, local here, AWS account executive, and when I connect people with him, he always does that. He wants to talk on the phone on his drive or something, you know? So like that would actually, he would have told the person that, hey, like, I'll call you, or you can call me at this time. But if you volunteered that, that would be a pattern interrupt and earn trust with him.
Yeah, like
these people are very busy, you know, and they appreciate that if they, the Zoom fatigue is, or Google Meet fatigue is real.
Yeah,
you know?
So that there's like ways that you can just build good narratives and positioning to make yourself look better. And it's like if they agree and they see how professional your resume is and it's like really easy to digest, one page, all that, it just builds up this credibility before your mouth even opens, where like if you don't have that dialed, like they might not see you as like someone who's actually professional and have more discernment and like, oh, is this even worth my time to get on a call? Would I even want to refer this person? Like, will it look bad? So there's just like all these small factors that go into like really standing out in one of the most competitive markets right now.
We could hit LinkedIn real quick, and then we're going to jump to interviewing, starting with some mistakes. And you've already given us a lot on interviewing, actually, with your narratives and different things. But just any high-level thoughts on how to optimize LinkedIn?
I think if I had to boil it down to one thing, like have a smiling photo. Like that. Yeah. That sounds so simple, but there's an
seriously,
like there's an individual who like wanted a ton of referrals, and I like told him and I inside Elite Tech Sales, it's like we're not politically correct. Like we're gonna say what needs to be said to get you the result. And I was like, honestly, man, like your profile picture sucks. Like you look like you have a very punchable face. Like you should.
Now maybe it's good for a YouTube thumbnail, but YouTube.
And then like they just didn't want to change it or whatever. And I was like,
come on, that's ego right there.
And I was just like, I was like, it's not like you're not going to get referrals with your picture. Like you can still get it. Like this isn't a one sum all game. But just like law of averages, like if you're a stranger online, like you should optimize every detail. And maybe it's in how to win friends and influence people, but just like smile, like be normal. Yeah. Go use an AI platform, go get a professional photo done. Like just smile. Like if you're worried about your cheeks or whatever, like get gluten out of your diet, like get the inflammation down and just make it happen.
Dude, it's like I actually recommend that to people too, and specifically an open teeth smile. It shows credibility and competence and warmth, and there are studies that have shown that. I've also heard like it's good to have your face be about 60% of the photo. Mm-hmm. I just had a podcast with a LinkedIn expert actually that was pretty freaking cool. It's not going to release for a while. And so, but I do think I love that you boiled it down to one thing. That's the first visual impression on LinkedIn. And don't have a punchable face. Like, come on, present yourself in your best light. And one thing I got to say, man, is we got our friend Kaylin, who's a top recruiter. And she is just an expert when it comes to the mind of the recruiter and what they're looking for. And she said, like, top recruiters at top companies are on LinkedIn and they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for candidates there. So you want to be looking nice. And also, I mean, of course, you can optimize your narratives in your resume, which, when someone works with you, you would work with them to do that, and you translate that to LinkedIn. And yes, there's a headline and a background photo that maybe can show a little more personality. You've got the bio, but a lot of the foundational work in the resume and narratives translates to LinkedIn, doesn't it? So is there anything else you'd add beyond the photo? We don't have to we don't even have to, because the interviewing is going to be meat and potato stuff, but I just want to throw that out there to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overall framework to take away, and clearly if you're going towards certain roles, you want to make sure your titles and everything are oriented towards like the roles you want, and it's not confusing your experience, like simplify, kind of custom for every scenario, but like have data on there. But the main thing is understand your resume and LinkedIn itself will not get you hired. It will get your foot in the door. And so think of them as like activities you should optimize to the best of your ability. And like, that's why you'll have like free access to our mini course and like templates. Like just have that be a good standard, because your overall focus to actually land the role comes down to one factor and one factor only. And that is how well you communicate your value. That is all it comes down to. And the reason we give people the answers to the test and help build them all these narratives is I could tell you all the answers and you could still fail. And you're probably like, well, why? Like, what does that mean? And it's not just having the answers to the test, it's how you communicate it. So energy beats form. And so if you are going into an interview and you're not prepared, you don't know what questions you're going to be asked, well, you're dealing with a level 1 problem, which is you don't even know like what you're going to respond with. So you're going to have a bad answer and shoot yourself in the foot. A level 2 is like you're getting your memorization down, you have good stories, you have a good database of questions you can deploy. And so it's like you're just kind of working on like getting, the right stories put in. But level 3 problems are where you want to be at by the time you're stepping into an interview. And that's where you're like, okay, cool. I know what answer I'm going with. I know all my stories. I am just focused on how the energy is behind how I communicate it, the tone, the inflection, the contrast. Like that's all you should be focused on. If you're still like, if you're getting to an interview and you're like, you're
like winging it,
you're
like the
not
answer itself, like that, you need to have crafted your answer, practiced, and now you're, like you said, you're optimizing your delivery.
Yeah, like if you're still worried about your LinkedIn and resume, it's like you are thinking about this all wrong. Like, dude, it's sales. It's all about delivery. That's why you don't need experience. You don't need a degree. You need to learn how to communicate.
So we sell ourselves into the best opportunities regardless of our experience by really interviewing well and communicating values at the core of it, right? So now let's round out we're going to do interviewing and then negotiating, talk a little bit about elite tech sales as well. I got the swagger. Let's go.
The cold collar polo.
Yeah. The cold collar polo. Yeah. All right.
Saw you and Bella at the dog park with it.
Right. That's a pretty good picture. She was very happy with the shirt. She's like, Dad's looking good, right? He's not some bimbo. What was the term we used of his face is not punchable?
I do need to give you a new one. We have the tone on tone black, kind of the invisible edge we give people. So
yeah, talk about before we get into interviewing, which the invisible edge will manifest itself as we talk about it. But what does that mean? The invisible edge? You give your members the invisible edge.
Yeah. So when you think of, I think interviewing has a lot of different interpretations behind it. Like, and what we've noticed a lot within people is, and this is more of like a marketing term, is they're problem unaware. And that's kind of the spectrum they go down typically before they join is, oh, I don't need help interviewing. And it's like, cool, like go get a job. And like they'll go get a job, probably not be happy, or like they'll start becoming problem aware once they fail so many interviews. And so it's like this big aha moment when people go through like a high performance container like elite tech sales, because like we're not there to, like we are there to cheer people on, but we realistically want people getting like the most epic results and most money in their pocket, and that comes with high repetition on their narratives and how they perform,
and tough feedback too when they need it.
Yeah, so it's like we give people an invisible edge. So that's why we have it tone on tone, is and people love them, is it's like you have an edge in your career that people can't see. Like we literally have SDRs and AEs making more money than their peers just because they learned the art of interviewing. And like anything, it's just a skill you acquire that was never taught. So you don't have to be hard on yourself of like, I don't have this, or I don't have this job, or I don't have that. But I think the quicker you can internalize that good sellers sell themselves into good opportunities, and the amount you're paid is congruent with how well you communicate your value, the quicker you internalize that and you can put your ego aside and be like, wow, this is just a skill deficit I can acquire and get better at. That's when you realize you've acquired the invisible edge that will serve you the rest of your career.
Yeah, dude, this conversation's been gold. You know, I'm taking mental notes right now. I can't wait to rewatch it. Time is flying. I don't even know where we're at. And so what I'm going to do with interviewing is I just want to hit on mistakes and like top tips because you've already given some. So like, is there anything like you're like, I need the audience to know this? Like, do not make these mistakes. Let's talk about that.
There's one that's popped up multiple times that I think is hilarious that people think is right. People showing up to an interview with a pre-made presentation. So really funny, but multiple people, they're like, oh, I'm doing great. Like they ask me to tell me about myself and I'm like, oh yeah, great. I made a PowerPoint. And I'm like, that is like the worst thing you can do, because what you're actually doing with that behavior is you're pretty much saying, I'm more important than you. I'm going to hijack your time and walk you through this PowerPoint instead of just answering the question. I don't think it's bad to have one, but I do think the whole point of the interview is like, you still got to be respectful of their time. You should not like hijack the meeting. And by the way, you can still send it to them after to show you prepped, or you could send it before. But to pull something up middle of an interview, it's disruptive, disrespectful. They have a checklist or questions they need to ask. And I actually think in a lot of ways it shows you're not emotionally aware if you hijack time like that.
Yeah, my last company, Jack, our recruiter, complained. He's like, oh, this person, they couldn't get to the point. They were talking so much I couldn't even ask my questions. And so just having empathy. Another issue, as you mentioned, is if you're bringing up a presentation, you're hijacking the conversation. Your job is to actually meet them where they're at, have empathy for what they need to achieve, and help them feel good about what they're doing and give them the information they need, and of course to wow them with some great answers, pattern interrupts, and leaving them with a memorable story. So are we good now to dip into I don't know why I thought of dip, but like let's dip into like top interview tips that we haven't hit on?
Yeah.
Or because you do feel good about mistakes. We've hit on a quite
a
few.
I have a great tip to share.
Okay, let's do the tips, man.
Let's
tip of the cap to you.
Yeah. So there's so many facets to an amazing interview. And one of the things I love about interviewing as a whole is if you really break it down, it's like it's acting at the end of the day. Like I know that sounds bad and there could be a negative connotation, but there's a time horizon for you to perform, and every word you say should be dialed to give the best performance before the call ends. Like that's all you have to execute. An area that I see people just totally miss out on as part of their performance is the questions they ask the recruiter or hiring manager. And so I want to give you like very tactical frameworks for your audience to take away. And the very interesting thing to think about when you think about when you ask questions is it's the first time in the interview where they can actually gauge how your brain works. Like their script's over, they're waiting to see how your brain processes the world and what you're going to deliver to them. And I think this is an amazing opportunity to capitalize on it. And one of the best compliments I ever received was from one of my friends I went to the gym with, who he was a director of customer success at Optimizely and a few other companies very early that scaled very, very large. And he said, Jay, I actually don't know what you do for work, but I can tell you're very smart by the questions you ask. And that was a big aha moment and a big foundation of elite tech sales. So when it comes to asking questions, I'll give you a few tangible ones and like frameworks you can work with. The first one is never ask a question. Always have context before you deliver. So the reason you want to do that is everyone's going to think you know nothing about anything unless you can show you have context. So you worked at Google. So I'd be like, hey, Chris, I saw the acquisition of Wiz. I'm sure there's a ton of excitement going on there. I'm curious though, like for you specifically, what are you most excited about this year? And so, and you could acquisition, recent news event, whatever, like just show you did your homework, lean into it. And this is the first question I'll always have people start with, because what you're doing is you're building context before you're delivering it. So now you're relegated to a higher level instead of just asking a question. And there's a lot of psychology baked into everything, but also if you work at Google and I was to reframe it differently and say, well, Chris, what's Google most excited about this year? Well, you're not Google. And like even if you're a rep there, you're typically not excited about on a personal level, like what the company is. And so it's a really cool opportunity to ask like, well, what are you specifically most excited about? And on another level, I'm actually anchoring an emotion inside of you. And so it's a really good gateway to the rest of your questions. Because if I'm to say, hey, Chris, what are you most excited about tonight? Like, it gives you a chance to actually feel that emotion.
To feel good. That question's designed to make the audience feel good
Yeah.
while also showing you did your homework and you're a thoughtful, conscientious person. So what a double whammy.
Yeah.
Like powerful.
And like a few others could be like, and again, the point of asking questions is to create novelty and thought-provoking questions where someone has to sit and think and be like, wow, that was really unique. No one's ever asked me that or asked it that way. I think in today's competitive market, hot take, all the questions about like KPI stuff like that within reason should just be asked like internally networking with people or in like one-off calls.
Yeah.
Like if this is your performance, you should execute it. Or like just like making you feel special. Like, Chris, what is one thing about working at Google that you love that you feel like most people just don't talk about? Like something like that.
I would talk your ear off about it.
Or one of my favorite ones, and this is what we teach. So when you look at our website and like you literally see people making over 100,000 more as an AE, etc., it goes down to frames of value. So like an amazing question, let's play it out twofold, is what if I say, hey, Chris, what are the resources in development to make sure I have a first successful 90 days? Like what can I expect? Well, compare that to this. And I say, hey, Chris, I have a few buddies who work at Google and Shopify, and they're crushing it. However, they actually get capped with their accelerators at 200 to 300%. I just wanted to confirm with you if there's any thresholds to where payout will be capped and what that looks like. And so it's a completely different frame. Instead of coming out as a liability of like, hey, like, what do you have to make sure I'm successful? I'm not even in that frame of concern. I'm just like, what caps am I going to hit if I get to 300%? Like if I'm a manager, I'm like, I want to work with that guy over the person who's like worried about our resources and development.
Yeah, you're like basically saying I'm gonna crush it. I just don't want to be limited, and I have insider information, I'm a professional. I get the game, right?
Yeah.
So you're showing some acumen, and that's a behavior too. You want a seller who wants to max the comp plan and make as much money as possible.
Yeah.
These questions are powerful.
And maybe just bonus for your audience is always take the frame of the person you're interviewing with, especially a hiring manager. Like think of the concerns they have in their day to day. So if like, and I used to be a manager, so it's like if you're a manager, like you're kind of thinking with any new hire, like who's going to add the most value to my team? And so one concern typically with any new hire is like, are they going to be an individual contributor or a team player? And so you can always like, you can add these like value props where it's like, yeah, like one of my favorite things I did at my last company is like, while I was overachieving quota and like building the most pipeline, I took it upon myself to actually run a part in our team meetings where I would teach best of breed practices to the rest of our team so we could all, overachieve. And if you're a manager listening to that, like you're typically comped on your team's performance and you're like, this guy wants to come in as a top performer, wants to crush it and give back to the team instead of being an IC like everyone else. And he's going to make my life easier. Sold.
So how do you close? And then we can roll that in negotiation. I know we've gone over our time, and I don't know if the studio is going to hit me up and say, Chris, what are you doing? But
they'll take your credit card.
Yeah,
but
right.
It's a company expense.
It's too good.
It's for the audience.
It's too good, right?
For the tech sales community.
Yes. Let's go.
And that's a good investment.
We want you guys to make a lot more money on this path. So let's talk just closing. If there's any things you coach people on in terms of closing in interviews. I know there can be a close early on. There can be a close in a final round. That one's a little juicy, the final round. there's following up, and then ultimately just high level thoughts on negotiating, creating leverage to get higher offers, because you're getting some people offers that are like 10K more than they should have gotten, 100K, or at least increasing their earnings by 100K. So it's crazy. So let's talk about how do you close in interviews?
Funny enough, like we just do a 2-part framework. It's like, sweet, do you have any hesitations? I'm moving me to the next round. And then if they say it, and it's like, okay, great. When can I expect to hear back? You just want to get the timeline so you know when you can follow up. The reality is if you're, this is my belief, is like if you're overcompensating for like this amazing close, you probably didn't perform well enough. So it's like
Good point.
just like front load, like the rest should be easy. And again, it goes back to that concept we brought up a bit earlier, which is obstacles versus objections. And so if you have the emotional intelligence to know your shortcomings and you're like, well, I haven't sold to this person, I haven't done this deal size, here are my sales cycle lengths, I'm going to proactively handle that in a way which alleviates the objection, there won't be those hesitations at the end.
Everything the audience learned on how to sell yourself and the opportunity is going to create the leverage to be in a position to move forward, and it's going to reduce friction to the close. So to your point, if you perform well, you don't have to have this heroic close. And that is a mistake, is that people think that, oh, if I say the perfect things at the end, it's going to make up for all my deficiencies in the interview process. And that's not the case. So do you also, I'm assuming, coach on like a follow-up note though as a part of your closing process?
Yeah, we keep it pretty simple. Like, do call outs of like points they made, keep it personalized. So, if there's a panel, send individual emails to all individuals. Don't just do a group one. And nothing too crazy. Like a lot of it comes back to like frames of value. So we always tell people like a lot of it comes down to your performance. You can be coming from a place of need or uncertainty or less confidence if you're trying to handle objections and like rebuttals in your follow-up. It's like just maintain your frame of value. But there are like situations where we just got a job at Databricks, which like that was awesome. That was a company I was like, yeah, let's
That's
make
like
it
the
happen.
one company that I'd work with if I got back into tech sales. They're
It's so good.
company.
And I mean,
I was just talking to our boy Andy at Databricks, who we both interviewed today, actually. So
great guy.
yeah.
And like there is situations where like he went above and beyond with our approval, where I think like after like a mock cold call or role play, he sent like the follow-up email he would have sent to that exact prospect, which was a nice touch. So it was just showing how he would continue that sales cycle, which was good. And that was also an insider tip that he got from someone in the company that shows. So the maximal effective dose for the knowledge to take is always inside the organization. So while we're helping people with this, we're also having them network with people internally. And going back to lower the cost to transact, I always tell people network internally and figure out like the phrases and words they use, because if you can actually go into your panel presentation mock call and use the exact frameworks and language and nomenclature that is used within the organization, all of a sudden they're already seeing you as an insider instead of all the external people. And again, you're making it a lower cost to transact by putting in the work.
And people buy from and hire people they like, and when you speak their language, there's subconscious bonding going on. Like this person is like us, already feels like they're part of the team. That is a subtle principle that I use that's helped me be successful in outbound to get meetings with prospects too. So like, I love that you hit on that. As we round out, let's talk about some of the results you produce helping individuals negotiate way higher pay than they would have gotten without your program, basically, and then give a few tips on negotiation. And then we'll tie a bow on this one. Guys, we're going to have another session. We're actually going to do a series up to 5. And the next one, we're going to talk about like 30 interview questions you're going to get and walk through answers. Like that's going to be juicy. Okay.
It's going to be a masterclass.
So it's going to be a masterclass. Stay tuned. So as we round this one out, what are some of the results you're getting helping people negotiate?
They've been great. I want to explain the framework and thought process behind it first.
Okay.
So anyone who thinks that you can just send an email to negotiate salary, they're not completely wrong. Like, I'm sure there's situations where that happens. All of it's about building up a high frame of value going into it. So one of the like typically during the interview process, you get asked about salary or what your expectations are. Biggest mistake is always saying a number and just like not, leaving ambiguity, because what a lot of people think during that time is when the recruiter says that number during like any time before the offer, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm gonna win my salary negotiation here. It's actually not what you do. Like it's all about just holding a frame of high value. And so, I mean, we could even role play it real quick.
Sure.
So I'll be the recruiter and I'll give you feedback, but just kind of riff with it like a normal candidate would, or what you think is fit. But
Okay.
Chris, what are your salary expectations for this role?
Well, I think it's a good question, but I felt it. Shoot, it actually might be a little premature in the process to expect salary. I mean, I do have a good awareness of the data when you look at sources like RepView on median pay for this specific role, and I did see in the role you posted certain numbers.
Like what
I
numbers?
definitely, and I see myself at the higher end of the range, but is this something that we can revisit after the interview process after I've delivered?
Yeah.
So that's pulling out of my ass.
No, and
Yeah.
you're a tenured seller, so I know like you're gonna, kind of snake through
Yeah.
it, which is good. But what most people end up saying, and this is like
They
a
give
very
a
large-
number.
they'll say this, they'll say, yeah, I'm expecting this. So they'll give a number or they'll give a range.
So by the way, I had someone that came to me and they gave a number that was lower in than the job posting.
Right. So
Can you believe that?
so-
There was a job posting that said a certain range. They didn't look at it and they gave a number that was lower.
And so here's the problem. So if let's just play it out for like an AE role, and I'm like, hey Chris, like what are your salary expectations? And you say, anywhere in like the 160 to 180 range.
And I would say that I was being a little sneaky there, but
No, and I know. But like, let's say you play that out, like the problem with your frame of value goes down if I'm like in my back pocket, I'm like, oh crap, this role's like 200 to 250. This guy's probably underqualified. So it's like by saying a number, you can actually shoot yourself in the foot. So part of interviewing is how good you communicate. The other half is just not shooting yourself in the foot. And a lot of people don't understand that dichotomy.
And you can do that by anchoring in a lower number. Or you could do that by over talking and being unclear with your answers. So there's a lot of ways we can shoot ourselves in the foot.
And so,
You know?
it like the second part of this is let's say you go flawlessly and you don't give a range and you're like, yep, ultimately, like you said, looking for a fair market value. What is the range for this role? That's when I would,
asking a question is a good.
So then you
yeah.
throw it back to me and I'm like, yeah, it's like 200 to 250. And where a lot of people get this wrong is they'll say, they'll be like, oh yes, that works. Like they're really excited. And so it kind of like diminishes your frame. And so I always tell people the way to handle that is you need to sit back, relax, and just say, yeah, I think that could work. I definitely want to be at the upper range of that, but really I'm looking for the full package. So the product, the team, the product market fit, everything. And seriously, a place I can build, the next 5, 10, hopefully, who knows, 20 years at. And so what you're actually doing with that response is you're still not given a number. You're anchoring yourself in the upper echelon of the range. So when you get to the offer phase, they come in top tier, then you can negotiate from there. But you're also not over-indexing on currency. And that's a big mistake people make, is all they care about is currency. If you're a recruiter and you're talking to someone who's all they care about is currency, you're a flight risk, because the minute more currency comes into the picture, you're going to leave. So you always have to re-anchor it with things they care about, which is you're there for the full package, the product,
Long-term vision,
the retention.
Yeah.
So it's an art, but if you take anything away, it's build a high frame of value and execute your interview well. That way, when you get to the offer, we can send one email and make you 18K. So it's like, it's not a one situation, but I think it's a unawareness problem of how much money people are legitimately not making every year just from not interviewing well. So it's like it's just like a no-brainer. Like especially the AE market's been prime for us. Like we started off doing SDRs at the beginning of Elite Tech Sales. Like we're doing way more AEs now because like we can make them so much more money.
Yeah.
Like even like the 10K signing bonus we talked about, or 6K more on draw, or like 115K higher OTE. Like that puts a smile on our face.
Dude, that puts on a smile on my face too, an open teeth smile, right?
Yeah.
Guys, we said this conversation was probably going to shave years off your career trajectory. maybe make an extra $100,000 in earning potential, and you're doing that for your members. So let's tie a bow on this conversation, and I look forward to the future ones. Like, any other final things you'd share about, what you're up to at Elite Tech Sales? Any final thoughts for the audience?
I think like the reason we've been giving out like a ton of free content lately is like we're a capacity constrained business, so we run on roster spots, and like when we have openings, like we want to bring people in. Also, like it's kind of weird because we started Elite Texas. We're hoping to do more in-person events going forward.
Yeah.
But I think like starting we're coming up on year 2 doing everything online is we also have like a high level of discernment of like who we even want to work with. And so I think if like when we look at all the people like on our newsletter wait list, like who are waiting for roster spots or coming in, I would say like if you really want to work with us, like find a former member, someone to reach out and like vouch for you if you think they're good, because we've actually seen the highest success with that. So like a good example is like we got a job at Google, and so his friend group was like, dude, this is crazy. He referred a friend. His friend just got a job at Databricks.
Oh,
they now have
wow.
a third friend. And so like we prioritize those people because typically good people know good people, where I have a good level of discernment when I'm seeing people in person. That's why we're going to do like more in-person stuff coming out. But I think like with a lot of the capacity constraints and everything, it's like get like our former members who are like literally at like Ramp, HubSpot, like all these brand name companies, like when they say like, hey, this guy's like going to be good for your team to work with, like we take those words like with a lot more weight than just like some stranger who books some time on our team's calendar.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we're definitely like looking to grow the amount of people we can take in. I do think with how niche down we are and like getting high caliber like VPs in, like people who are getting people offers, even one who just got offboarding got an AE 2 offers from IBM and MongoDB in 17 days and made her over 53K. So it's like we have high standards, but like that's ultimately what you would want out of like working with someone. And so that's going to be something that we expand, is like just bringing in more high quality people so we can help more. But podcasts like this are great. Some of the 4K content. I even sold some to the University of Kansas back in the day. I like to give a lot of that away for free because we're just not in a position where we can help everyone, but the content can still help people.
And we've got the resume linked in the description of the video. That's going to be
Yeah.
a great win for the audience. And from there, maybe they have the opportunity to apply for the program.
Yeah, just talk.
Want to join a high performance container, as you said, that's actually going to shoot them straight and get them the results.
Yeah, it's no fluff. So it's like steal all of our free resources, network with people. Like we literally had someone graduate saying I'm a disciple of ETS. We've had people who want to come back for their second negotiation and stuff because they're getting poached by a competitor that's even a better offer. So yeah, it's just like cool inside. I think it's cool to see all the good people we get to help, and it's cool to get more exposure even on a platform like this with all the good work you're doing with the tech sales community.
Yeah. Jay, thank you for generously sharing so much value and insight today. This has been amazing. And to the audience, thanks for showing up, guys. I respect you for investing in your professional development. I really want you to take advantage of this amazing path to create a life of freedom and impact. I've been doing this for 4 years, and I'm giving you all I got. I'm taking it to another level, honestly, over the coming years. I'm all in, left corporate, but I can't lift you all up alone. And that's why there's individuals like Jay and programs like Elite Tech Sales, where I'm repping the swagger, that I really believe in because they're getting the results and you're hearing about it, that I want to amplify. And I encourage you to, download this template, see if you can connect with Jay and their team if you're serious about breaking in and taking advantage of this life-changing path. So guys, looking forward to this next interview with Jay, where we're going to talk about interview questions. You've got to make sure you get ready for that one. And in the meantime, to your success in tech sales and in life, happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, Jay.
Nice. Thank you, Chris.